Yeah, okay, time to live free. Plenty goals I'm achieving. Some real life topics and talking financial freedom. Mindset, soul and love, everything in between. This is Freedom Podcast. Tune in, live free. Hey, got my mindset right and I got the drive. Planning one day, no more job, no more 9 to 5. Love, money, mind. Love, money, mind. This is freedom. Tune in, cause it's going down. Woo!
Hi, it's Anna and welcome to another episode of Your Freedom Podcast. In this episode, I interview Emily Kaye. Emily is a survivor of domestic abuse and trauma, and she has a really inspiring story to share with you today. She's currently working as a volunteer for Thriving Survivors, which we will share to support anyone that's listening who needs it. But I'm really excited, having survived domestic abuse and violence myself. I'm really excited to be interviewing Emily today. So, hi, Emily. I'm really excited because I know we connected on Facebook, didn't we, recently?
We did, yes. I was really excited to be invited, and I love all the stuff that you're doing. So,
Inspiring story to share with us today. And just to remind you, obviously, the Freedom Podcast, we focus on freedom in love, freedom in money, and freedom in mind. And the love part, a lot of people think is like romantic relationships, but actually, for me, love is self-care and self-love, and also maybe like the love that we give to the rest of the world, and kind of like romantic relationships as well. So relationships with everybody, but it starts with us, just because of a lot of the stuff that I did working on myself. So freedom in love, freedom financially, and also freedom in mind, which I think Fred in the head, as I call it, can cause us problems. And it's our mindset that kind of, you know, if we can have a free mind, then it kind of helps us have a balanced life. So I'm going to open it up and just get you to start sort of sharing about your story. I don't know how far back you want to go. And I know you've got an amazing charity that you want to share as well with us today. So share how Emily is the person she is today.
Yep. So thanks ever so much, Anna. So I came to Glasgow. I'm currently in Glasgow. I came here 17 years ago to do a teacher training year. I've got a drama degree and I wanted to teach drama, but I found that it wasn't the right time for me to be teaching, and teaching wasn't really for me. In fact, I hated it. So but I love Glasgow, and I moved up here on my own, away from my family, and just decided to stay. It's been quite an eventful 17 years, though. It's not been easy. I've had 3 stable jobs since I've been up here, but one I got made redundant from. And my last 10 years really have been quite turbulent. I went from relationship to relationship that were very abusive, both physically and mentally. And I ended up in refuge over the other side of Glasgow. To where I really knew. But to be honest, it was the best thing that could have happened to me, because I'd never really settled anywhere. I've now got a council flat, and I really was able to set myself up and be more stable. Also, I thought, but obviously that over emotions, and I'd started binge drinking a lot more, and that meant that my job became really unstable. Like, I was unstable within my job because the amount of time I had to have off. I was suffering with depression. I really didn't know how to get myself well. And the only thing that was helping me get outside my head was drinking. My work were really good. They did give me CBT, but it was one-on-one. I didn't know at this point that there was other avenues that I could have taken, that I could have had group therapy, which for me, I think, to know that you're not alone, to have one-on-one, you sometimes feel like you're the only person there.
Yeah, which is what we were talking about just before. We were gossiping before we went live, that the reason I put this podcast together was to kind of just share other people's. There's something, I'm going to swear here, so for people listening who don't like swearing, you might want to kind of turn the volume down. But somebody said to me years ago that we're all fucked up. And I think that's true in some respects, that it depends how you look at that word, that nobody has a perfect life, but we're always like, especially social media, we're always trying to go after this perfect life with a perfect house and a perfect car and a perfect husband and perfect children. You know, that's how society goes. But actually, everybody's had some kind of adversity when you break it down. It's just that some have bigger ones than others. And it's just actually, we've all got, especially during this weird time at the moment with COVID, I think it's really challenging people's mental health. Because I feel really, really strong throughout all of this. I think because I've been through so much worse. I don't know if you feel a bit like that. So let's rewind a little bit. Obviously, you said you had a couple of relationships that were abusive. When did you kind of like realise that was the case? Because I think sometimes it's hard, isn't it, when you're in it?
When both times was when the police intervened. The first one, he had a stiletto heel to my throat, and I screamed. He chucked all my stuff out of my handbag down the stairs, and I didn't see that as abusive. Obviously the stiletto against my heel was pretty frightening, but he was drunk and I kept making excuses for him about that.
Yeah.
And they said, you do realise that him throwing your stuff out of your bag, that's really intrusive. That's somebody wanting to belittle you, taking your stuff and just emptying it all over the stairwell. That's just not acceptable.
Yeah.
And at the time I was really distraught, thinking, no, that they're wrong. Like, I mean, I'd been bullied at school, and that was one of the things that happened was, you know, people emptying a school bag. So for me, it wasn't maybe as traumatic as they were making it out. They're like, no, that's totally unacceptable behavior. And he was removed. Same with this, the second time it happened, my partner at the time did it in the street, and he stamped on my phone when I tried to phone one of my friends, and he'd hit my head off he grabbed my hair and hit my head off a concrete post. Luckily one of the neighbours saw it.
Wow.
It wasn't until I got made homeless, because obviously that was his house. He would have to come back, so I had nowhere to go. So I went with my suitcase into work in tears, and it was them that said, look, we'll help you. And they suggested Women's Aid. Women's Aid took me in.
You don't have any family, do you, in Glasgow? Or do you have family in Glasgow? No.
Nobody up there. So it was just me. So that was pretty, I mean, I don't know how I got through it, to be honest, Anna. But as I do everything, I just kind of breezed through it as if this was normal.
Yeah, I can relate to everything you're saying, and the reason I'm asking is I think if people are listening, because I think I did very similar things, that you feel like you've got this unique relationship with this person, and actually it was a one-off, or there was, you know, he just kind of got a bit angry at that moment. We all get angry and lose control a bit, so we kind of give excuses for things that actually we shouldn't be giving excuses for. And there is a bit of denial that I think it's like you think, oh no, that happens to other people. And also I used to be quite mouthy back, and I used to be quite open about how I felt. And I remember saying this is abuse, and he'd be like, you haven't got a black eye, you haven't got this, you haven't got that. He'd actually say stuff like that to me, you know. So I think it's all that stuff in your head, isn't it? Because you're being also coerced and manipulated psychologically, and you're questioning yourself. Oh, it's hard to explain fully, but I think people who could be going through something like that right now, because we know that domestic abuse and domestic violence is massively on the rise at the moment. And I don't know about you, I've been thinking, thank God I have not been in the relationship I was throughout this lockdown, because it would be hell. You know, and I think there are a lot of people that are. And it's kind of, I just want you to kind of think about people who are listening and what could help them, because obviously you said it was when you became homeless, and that was the Women's Aid bit, wasn't it? So really, why do we do this? I did the same. Why do we wait until it's kind of were forced to make a decision to move, or looking back, it's like, what could people do to get out if they're stuck in the relationship in the lockdown right now? I found Women's Aid quite useful, actually. That is one route, isn't it? They have a lot of stuff online as well.
I think for me, I had lots of low self-esteem issues even before I went out with these guys, and it's that you're kind of like, I mean, I've looked this up online and done lots of research for myself about it and why I stayed and why I am, I'm drawn to those kind of relationships.
Yeah.
Because I am, and that stems very much from my childhood and being codependent and wanting to please people and feeling that the only way that you can be loved is to give love. So
Yeah.
And that's not the case. You can give love without needing to be loved back, and you deserve to be loved no matter what you do.
Yeah.
I think it's important for people to recognize that. I was lucky enough to be on a conference with Tom Fortismeyer about the inner child, and he said, is a newborn baby deserving of love? Well, absolutely. And then he said, when does that change? And he said, the answer is never. It doesn't. We're all, when we're in this world, we're all worthy of unconditional love, no matter what. And I think people grow up nowadays, especially thinking that love is a conditioning. You have to do this and I will love you. You have to be good and I will love you.
That's really good. That's a really nice share, that, because it is so important. Because you're right, 100%. We shouldn't have to do certain things, should we, to feel that we've got to do all those things to be loved. Or I was a people pleaser as well. I'm kind of not so much now. But you only do that once you've worked on yourself quite a bit. So I think that's a really, really good share, that, as regards to love, because with the baby example, because it's true, isn't it? A newborn baby can't speak or do anything really, and there's that unconditional love forever. So
yeah, that for me was powerful. And also I think these relationships, people know when you've got a good heart and you want to give, and they just have this radar to want to use it. But for me, it's taking those buttons away. Nobody can push buttons if you don't have any buttons and you don't have a way. Nobody can take that way from you because you just don't have a way or any buttons to push. So it's being able to be in that sense of calm and learn how to be centered enough to go, well, actually, would I have done that if I wasn't looking for love back off you?
Yeah.
Would I do that? It's being able to really check in with yourself and go, am I living the values that are for me? Am I living the way that I want to live for myself? Or am I living because I've got these conditions that I need to fulfill in order for this person to love me?
Yeah, exactly. So how did you, because I've noticed there's lots of individual places that can help, but it is a bit confusing how you can get help. And I think if we think it's a bit confusing how you can get help, when you're in it, it's really hard to get help, isn't it? And I think a lot of women get help for Women's Aid. I did. My issue was that I was running a business, and even though my income had gone down with all the stress, I didn't fit any of the criteria for how. That's what was the frustrating thing for me, that even though other people probably thought, oh, that's okay, you've got your income, but it was like, sometimes that really got me down and upset, because it was like my whole mental health has really got to me, and like I feel like I can't cope, and everyone's just ticking this box like, oh, she's fine, because I'm over I'm earning and I'm over this threshold. But actually I just wanted, you kind of just want like a mum to come and hug you and sort everything out, So how did you, after, obviously your work were really supportive, and so after you got Women's Aid, because I know you're involved in this charity, aren't you? So how
I am now, yeah. So it's just a really great story, and I'm so privileged to be able to come on here and speak about this. So I ended up breaking my foot back in September last year. Me and the neighbours were having a bit of a drink, and I ended up tripping on my rug and landing on my foot. So I broke all the metatarsal bases in my right foot. And ended up signed off for 3 months, which wasn't great considering I was on a final warning for attendance from work anyway. So I then couldn't do anything for myself, and me and the cat had to go and stay at my mum and dad's for 3 months. So
that was all the way, because obviously you were in Glasgow. Is that all the way back down south?
yeah, in Norwich. So yeah, busy household. My mental health was bad. I was obviously drinking far too much still.
Did they know what had been happening?
No.
Yeah.
Well, they knew about the abusive relationships I've been in, but they didn't really know how bad my drinking had got.
Yeah.
So I went to a place called Change Grow Live. I found them because I'd looked at I'd reached out to a couple of places on Facebook who'd been helping me along, because I'm as you found me on posts and things. I was on there. So I just actively looked for things close to home, because while I couldn't do anything physically, I really wanted something that would help me mentally.
Yeah.
Program through Emerging Futures, which is like a 12-week program.
Okay.
Give you tools to help you think about other a toolkit that helps you challenge your own thinking, kind of like CBT, but it was a group. It was in a group environment, but that helped both my drinking and the other side of things, like my trauma and everything, because it was giving me a toolkit to not overthink things, stop me from thinking that everything was my fault, and also giving me other things to think about rather than drinking.
Yeah.
Exactly. What else makes Emily feel good? Like reading, or I've now gone into holistic therapy for myself. So I've started doing a Reiki course. I do my oracle cards. I do my crystals. It's lovely. It's a lovely journey to be on. They went through the 5 senses, and there was a guy there who suffered from PTSD because of being in the army. And obviously when you're trying to ground yourself, I got it, because if you're trying to ground yourself in the present moment is what's scaring you, even though it's irrational, you're still in that moment. Nothing that you try and hear in the present or whatever from your 5 senses is going to give you comfort in that moment.
Exactly.
I developed my own. I have around about me, wherever I'm sitting, I have something I can smell, something I can touch like my crystal, something that I can see that makes me feel good, something that chocolate to the other side of me. So
these essential oils.
Yeah.
I used to have, like, the rollerball ones. I'm just looking, it's all lined up on my shelf. And I just put them on, I don't know if you've ever done tapping, EFT technique. Yeah, so before I used to go to like a court hearing, because I had so many bloody court hearings, I used to, because I'm a smoker as well, having a quick fag outside. I couldn't bring perfume because the security take the perfume off you. So I used to have this little rollerball with really nice essential oils and just take a deep breath, do a bit of tapping, and just get myself calm, before I kind of went into that courtroom atmosphere sort of thing. So I can really relate to the touch, what did you say, the smell, the crystal, the senses kind of thing, when you kind of feel yourself kind of getting into that panic, I suppose, maybe.
Yeah, it's transferable. So I still have those in my handbag, and I've got like a fluffy pom-pom on my handbag, so that if I do get anxious when I'm out, I can just feel that, and I know that, because all my home is like soft furnishings.
Yeah.
And they're all things that make me feel safe and feel comfort.
That's good, and that's really good shares for people to hear as well, for people who want to kind of, because I think the internet's great, we've got access to lots of different things, but it's just where we can find stuff, really. The 12-week program sounds really good, because it's 12 weeks, there's a beginning and an end to it as well.
Yeah.
Counselling, it's like ongoing, isn't it? And you kind of think, where's this going to? But 12 weeks, I like that. And obviously it took you through a kind of journey in that 12 weeks, I assume.
Yeah, I mean, I was only there for 7, but it really, really helped, and I took the techniques. But then as soon as I was back here and more mobile, I fell by the wayside with like my drinking still, because once I was back, I didn't have that safety net, and because it had been a group environment and things,
Yeah.
also been beneficial. So I then I'd gone on a really bad binge one night. I mean, they only lasted one night, but I think it's important for people that are listening that it doesn't matter whether or not you start drinking again the next morning, or if you're not a person who is sneaking around and drinking out of a paper bag. If your drinking is affecting your life and it's becoming unmanageable in different ways, you still have a problem, and there's still help out there. You can still go to things like I did. I went to AA. I'm still part of the fellowship, and it's how it makes you feel. It's how it makes you do things. Like, I'll go on a night out thinking I'll be fine, and it will be 10 glasses of wine later. I won't have saved my money for getting home. I'll end up going home with strangers because I want to keep the party going. And all of that is really, really unsafe for a start.
Exactly.
Anything can happen to you. And if you're doing that on a regular basis, it affects your self-esteem, it affects your bank balance, it affects your mental state. It doesn't do anything for your self-confidence or self-esteem, or it didn't for me anyway. At the time, obviously it does, but you've got all that to look forward to in the morning, as well as the hangover and the other emotions that you're trying to suppress.
Yeah, definitely. I felt like that with drinking, that I felt like you're trying to suppress other emotions. I hardly drink these days. I feel like I'm really boring compared to my friends. I still will drink, but I've got so much in the habit of not, that I now see it as a kind of negative as well. Do you know what I mean? I just don't particularly enjoy it that much anymore. How would you, because hearing you say I went to AA, I think there's a lot of people who, would think, oh, well, I don't really want to go to AA because, AA's got a bit of a reputation, hasn't it? It's like, God, you must be a complete and utter alcoholic. And there isn't really, like you say, if it's making an impact in your life, it is a problem. What was your experience of doing AA? Because that could also help people who are thinking about, I need help with my drink,
My experience of AA was really, really wonderful. Even before I even got through the door, there was a lady and one of the guys who said, "You come in and you're in the right place." And immediately, like, I got the biggest hugs, and I got the biggest hugs. It was just lovely, and the amount of love in that room, I can't even describe it. It was just a warmth.
I often wonder what these groups are doing now through COVID. Are they doing online Zoom meetings or anything? Because obviously they can't do the hugs right now, and they can't do probably face-to-face stuff, can they? Do you know what's happening right now? Because that's my worry at the moment, that there's lots of people have got lots of different mental health issues and they need help. And actually, I'm hearing all the time, oh, because of COVID we can't do this, because of COVID we can't do that. Don't know if you know.
Yeah, so there's loads of Zoom meetings, and the brilliant thing for me about Zoom is that you can go to Zoom in America, you can go into Australia.
Exactly.
It's 24/7 now, and you don't need to go anywhere, and you still get the feeling of love. It's connecting with other people, and I think that's important for people to know that that's out there, because as much as we don't want to promote, like, it's attraction rather than promoting. So if people feel like this is for them, then there is, of course, they can go and look online, or if they look online, there's the phone number that they can dial. There should still be somebody operating to let them know where their nearest meetings could be. So they can have that connection as well still.
And I think it's normally just fear, isn't it, that stops us doing, it's fear that stops us from doing stuff. So it's fear that when we're in these relationships of maybe leaving, or what would happen if you stand up to someone in these situations, or lots of different fear within the relationship. And then when you get out and you try and sort yourself out, there's this fear of, we have insecurities around what people think of us, and all these different things. And there was something recently I shared about, fear stands for face everything and rise. And I think that's really what I'd encourage people listening to who might feel that they do have maybe a drink problem, or they are in a relationship that's not healthy. There are so many different support groups and charities. It's just finding what's local to you, or like you say, online stuff, you can connect with someone globally. I love the online world for that in a business sense, but also just some amazing friends that I've met. I've never actually met them physically, but I've known them for years now online. And I think during obviously the lockdown, that's a great alternative. I think it's great to actually meet people face to face, but I think that's a great alternative to be able to do Zoom kind of support groups. But fear is a biggie, isn't it? In our insecurity, where Fred in the head, as I call it, stops us doing stuff in this script that we have in our head. And whenever we face it, we all feel so better for doing it. Whenever we feel uncomfortable, it's actually good, because it's comfort that actually makes us not change anything and just stay in the same situation and not be particularly happy. Whereas challenging ourselves and feeling uncomfortable initially always has been good for me when I've gone through those moments. So okay, great. So how did you then, after you were back, you then started sorting out the drink, as it were, when you came back after your foot was all damaged? It sounded like you really did mess your foot up big time. I think sometimes when you're drinking, you don't realise, do you? That's the damage that you do. How did you then, what happened next then? Because I know you had challenges with your job then, didn't you?
Yeah, so because I'd broken my foot and because I'd been off for so long, but it took them 6 weeks to make the decision. But they let me go, they sacked me. And as you can imagine, for somebody that like needs routine and money coming in, I was distraught. But you know what? I wasn't as distraught as I thought I would be. I knew that in my heart of hearts, that the universe was doing what was best for me. And
what job that you were doing, and what was the job that you were doing?
I was working as a customer service agent. Yeah, so it was nothing really to do with the job. It's just it can be so unrewarding sometimes. And I think for my mental space and where I still wasn't well when I went back mentally.
Yeah.
I hadn't done, I mean, I was a lot further on than I would have been had I not found that charity and done the work while my foot was healing as well. But yeah, so I went and I worked in a charity shop just to build my self-esteem, put more to my CV. I did get a few job interviews, but the criteria now, because I hadn't done a job interview really for 10 years, so everything had changed, so that was pretty daunting as well. But it was the lady at the job centre, because they already knew the situation, because my drop in pay happened because I was off for so long. They'd kind of helped me as well with my universal credit already. So when I told them what had happened, they knew of me. And they said, "God, that's terrible, come in and see us, and we'll get you an appointment straight away." And they were helping me. And they gave me this leaflet because I happened to mention the problems that I'd had, my background, and what I really wanted to do was work with people. And she handed me a leaflet and said, "People want experience now." And she said, "This is a charity and they will help you. It's a group for people who've suffered trauma. And if you go through the program, it's possible that they can then train you within the same to do, the same job." And I said, well, that's brilliant. That's what ultimately I'd really love to do. Even if it's not with them, at least it gives me more of a scope to still sort myself out while I'm looking for another job. So I did join with them, and I'm still there. I've gone through the program. I'm still repeating the program now, but as a trainee group facilitator.
Okay, brilliant. That's good.
With a view to then being a group facilitator full time. So my journey's really been awesome, although obviously it's not great while I was going through it.
No, exactly.
How much, help there was, though, and it's only by people telling. I mean, if I hadn't have told the women at the job centre about my background or what was still happening for me, this wouldn't have happened. So I think it's important that also people know, if they feel comfortable enough to have a trust in people that are there to help, things can happen. But if you don't know what you're going through or what you're looking for, then they can't help you.
Exactly. And I found that, I think there's so many different charities. So the one that you're doing the work with, the group facilitator, they is that a local charity or is it a national one?
It's a local charity. It's based in Glasgow. They're called Thriving Survivors. And
Thriving Survivors. So will you send me the link and details of that I could share with this blog post? Because that might help other people that are like in Glasgow or local to Glasgow, quite near to Glasgow maybe.
Yeah, I've not been taken through the referrals process, so I'd have to speak with my manager about that, because it's their organisation. Obviously, I don't want to.
Just check with them if there's anything that you can share for people that are local to your area that would help people on this. Just explain, or if there's anything else that you think along your journey that you can share along with this podcast, would be really great, I think, for people. What would you, if you were going to speak to somebody who was listening to this, who was maybe still in a really challenging relationship and feeling like they don't know which way to turn, but they have recognised that they are in an abusive relationship now, what tips or advice would you give them?
I would say to them that it's not going to change. Number one, that's fundamental. It's not your fault. It's not going to change. It's not your fault, and that it's not your job to fix this person or fix the relationship. Your only responsibility is yourself, and if you're not safe, you're never going to be safe. If I'd known about Women's Aid sooner, I probably would have tried going there before it got that far, because I already knew that it was abusive, but I didn't know how to leave safely. And I was still in that toing and froing of, is it me? Do I need to fix this? Absolutely not. You don't need to fix anything. Your main responsibility is to yourself and or your children. And getting out as safely and as quickly as you can.
Definitely. Thanks for that. So I'll round things up now. So I always ask everybody at the end of these podcast interviews a question, and that question is, what does freedom mean to you?
Freedom for me is the right to be wrong. So allow yourself and other people the right to be wrong, because nobody has all the answers, and I have grown up terrified of making mistakes, but in actual fact, it's the mistakes that I've learned from the most.
Brilliant. Love that. Is there anything else you think is important to share that maybe you've not shared so far for people, or if there is anything afterwards you think, we can always put some links into the comment section, so let us know. But if there's anything else you want to share for people that are listening that could be in an abusive relationship or just got out of one and maybe hitting the bottle a bit too much and it's impacting their life, just anything that you want to share finally from your journey.
Yeah, I'm also a member of CODA, which is Codependence Anonymous, and that's helped me phenomenally. I thought I didn't even know this existed. It was a friend that knew that I was repeating the same patterns with abusive relationships, and it made me realize that my behavior and my people pleasing and my mindset was affecting how I was approaching new relationships. And Codependence Anonymous really helps me with address those issues. And again, it's a group environment. You can share or not share, but if you feel it's for you, you can go along. And
that's a national one, isn't it? I think. Yeah. So we'll put that in there afterwards. Emily will send me some information, and we'll put as much information that's helped Emily on her journey, and we'll put them in the show notes or in the comments section if you're listening on YouTube. But big thank you, Emily, it's been great to connect with you. I know you're on my page and in my Freedom Project group as well. What's the future then? What do you want to do? What's the dream for the future?
My dream for the future is just continue to be able to be there and to help people. I've seen so much growth in people since I've been doing this, and it's lovely to see people surviving and thriving. So I think that's the important message, is that we're not just survivors now, we're thriving, and it's important that people know that there is hope and there are avenues that they can go through. They don't need to suffer alone.
Yeah, exactly. Brilliant. Thanks for being vulnerable. Thanks for being really open. Thanks for just sort of sharing your inspiring story, really, because it really is. I think if more of us actually got over that fear of just sharing what we've gone through as well, it can just help so many other people. Like you say, you can go from surviving to thriving. I know that I definitely have through this whole journey, whereas when I was in it, I was like, I didn't even want to get divorced because I felt that people who were divorcees I think I always felt that people who had gone through divorce hadn't tried hard enough in their relationship. That was imprinted on me. So I stayed for so much longer because I just didn't want to be divorced. It's so ridiculous. I look back now and I think, thank God I did. Do you know what I mean? I've definitely gone on to thrive. So thanks for sharing the vulnerability and all of your story. It is so valuable to share with other people. Let's stay in touch. We might be able to do some overlap on some good stuff within the world. And yeah, thanks everybody. Have a look at the show notes. Big thanks to Emily, and reach out to us if you want any more info. So thanks again, Emily.
Thanks, Anna. Been a pleasure being here. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Bye.
Hey, thank you for listening. Hope you had a blast. Here to elevate your life. It's the Freedom Podcast. Love, money, mind. Love, money, mind. Wanna see you all win. Wanna see you all shine. Just make sure that you subscribe. Bringing good vibes. Join the Facebook group. Now it's time to change your life. Hope you come back. Right now is the chance. This is an experience. It's the Freedom Podcast. Hey.